Hey everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video, we are going to attempt to do a unboxing of the Armageddon box set for Warhammer 40,000 as part of the introduction to the 11th edition. It's kind of weird because when I first started Warhammer, it was the probably tail end of 2nd edition. 3rd edition definitely hadn't started yet, so 2nd edition was still pretty active when I started, and then obviously 3rd edition came out in the I want to say the mid to late 90s, and then obviously as many editions until the 11th. So like many others, I'll be doing an unboxing of Armageddon, one because I actually want to get into the box, and two, well, how often do you get to unbox a 11th edition Armageddon box set? Anyway, the video is going to be a little bit weird and wonky just because setup area is not great. Anyway, front of the actual Armageddon box set. So we have pretty much the Blood Angels and the Orks, with the Blood Angels front and center, with Orks all around the periphery of the battle scene. Is a bit of a I'm going to say homage, I'm not going to say a callback, to the 2nd edition box set, which once again featured the Blood Angels and the Orks. So it's interesting to come back to some of that, and especially with the bolter color. Surprisingly enough, if I remember correctly, even on the 2nd edition box set, the bolter casing was also yellow. So whilst it's not the exact same pose, which I think it was probably would have been a captain with I think a bolter and a Stormfist, this is a captain with a storm shield, relic shield, shield, front and center. But yeah, definitely some very nice artwork here of the Blood Angels and the Orks. With so many editions past, do I regret not having rolled Blood Angels as my main Space Marine army? Nah, I still prefer my Dark Angels. So that's pretty much the front of the box. In terms of the back of the box, I can do this without banging into anything. So the box is still sealed. I'm not sure if the yeah, so the tape is still there. So pretty much front, can't really say front and center. Anyway, there we go. So pretty much the entire contents of the Armageddon box set, once put together, painted, etc. So the Marines on the left, Orks on the right. Obviously I did pick this up for the Marines, and I'll talk about how I'm going to do them later on. The Orks will be an interesting thing. I'm not going to become an Ork player anytime soon. I have mentioned in previous 40k videos, I'm not a huge fan of the Orks in the sense of I'm not gravitated towards that particular army. I know people who are, and they're not terrible, but they're not my particular play style. But I do have a plan, but we'll talk about that later. So in terms of the box, so we'll have core rules, chapter approved mission deck, the Dominatus campaign deck, some datasheet cards, and transfer sheets, which is pretty good. So it's all nice to have that all included. And then in terms of the actual miniatures, 61 in total. So we will have the Space Marines, Captain with Relic Shield, Chaplain with Jump Pack, Librarian, Ancient, 10 Intercessors, 5 Vanguard Vets with Jump Packs, 3 Eradicators with Heavy Bolters, and a Land Speeder. I will admit, I'm glad the Land Speeder has come back. It may not be in the same incarnation as 3rd edition, but it's back. As for the Orks, we'll have the War Boss, Big Boss, Battle Knob, Pain Boy and Grot Orderly, Weird Boy, 20 Boys, 10 Gretchen, Ortrak, and Big Mech Dakarig, which I believe is that. So definitely not too bad. I will admit, of all the Ork models, the Weird Boy is definitely the most interesting one, even though sometimes I think he's just got tentacles coming out of his head, but either way, they actually don't look too bad. They do look cool. So that's pretty much the contents of the box. So, just for the sake of videography, one slice, 2 slice. So that is pretty much was once mint and box, no longer mint and box. Well, it's still kind of mint and box, I haven't opened it up yet. Anyway, with the sticky bits now sliced open. I'm going to pull everything out, and then we're going to have a better look, as well as change the camera angle. Okay, now with everything somewhat out of the box, before I put this aside completely, so the top of the box is pretty much all the sprues that we will look at in a minute, and then everything else is pretty much in this nice little sealed box as well. But before I wanted to put it aside, I thought I'd just show off that nice little piece of artwork here for Armageddon, and kind of reminds me of the Orks Dominatus, but obviously it's much longer here than normal. But everything like the rule book, data cards, etc. are all in this little section that was at the bottom of the box. So I guess where do we start? There's a decent amount of stuff to go through, so I guess first of all, being the 11th edition starter box, naturally there is a book for all the core rules. Now we're not going to go through every single page because I don't want to get myself into too much strife over written material. But yeah, all the core rules for 11th edition are here, so naturally I'm sure there's a contents page. So there we go. So for the contents page, we've got the basic rules, core concepts, data sheets, moving, making attacks, attack sequence, and other concepts. And I'm sure most of them are a rough continuation of 10th edition with some tweaks. The battle round between, what do we have? The battle round. It's probably a general high profile look at it, followed by the command phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, and fight phase. So the phases are pretty much the same from what we used to see, but once again I'm sure those will go into some more details about it. Battlefield and tactics, such as terrain, objectives, stratagems and actions, advanced rules, monsters and vehicles, transports, attached units, strategic reserves, flying and surging. Obviously that's had a bit of a change. Other rules and abilities and aircraft, and then there will be a section for references, core abilities, rules appendix, and things like that. So definitely not too bad. It's interesting to see the core rules in this type of book. Now when I picked up my first rulebook, which was the 3rd edition rulebook, 1, it was hardback, and 2, it was not this size. So it's actually nice to see this in a bit of a consolidated book as opposed to some giant monstrosity, which probably explains a certain combat patrol companion, which I will go through in the future. But yeah, so everything seems to obviously have some nice visual diagrams of how to explain things, which is always nice to see. Obviously, I think it's nice in the way that things seem a bit more... I was literally going to say consolidate on the consolidate page, but that was besides the point. Everything feels more streamlined in the sense of if you want to read and understand how to play, everything is there. Whereas I feel in previous editions it was a little bit more wordy in a sense. But overall, you know, definitely not too bad to have everything all here. Naturally, there's going to be things like the 40k app as well, which will, you know, be the digital version of this. So overall, it is nice to have everything consolidated into a nice little rulebook. I'm pretty happy with that. What else is in here? Well, I guess more to the point, what isn't in here? Now, I believe this is actually exclusive to the box set, the Operation Imperator book. Now, there obviously won't be rules in this, but if we have a look, we're just, I believe this is more of a fluff companion and things like that. But obviously there's going to be, you know, some information in here that'll be interesting to read through. Once again, I'm just quickly paging through it because I don't want to get into too much trouble. But I'm sure, you know, it's a nice little companion book. In fact, once again, as always, we have contents. So Armageddon, the Angels of Death, which will pretty much go through the Space Marine armies that are deployed on Armageddon, the Orkish hordes, Operation Imperator, so the actual, I guess the narrative as to why so many Space Marine chapters have converged on Armageddon, Theaters of War, and then Dark Millennium. So I think this is probably just your generic section to just go over some of the further expansion of Warhammer 40k. But yeah, this will definitely look to be a nice little interesting read. I mean, once again, this is just a really super quick flick through the actual book. Once again, I don't want to spend too much time in here. But some very nice images here. In fact, all these models look very, very familiar. They're all painted as Blood Angels, but they're all familiar. Little page about the White Scars. I think here is a breakdown of the Space Marine chapters participating in Operation Imperator. It's always nice to see. Ultramarines, Black Templars, you know, pretty much a good number of the first founding chapters are there, and a number of all the subsequent foundings as well. So definitely a bit of a supplement in terms of narrative and story for Armageddon, and it is in a very nice hardback style, but it's obviously not too thick either, so you could probably read this in bed and feel a little bit comfortable that you're not going to knock yourself out with it. In saying that, you still probably could. And then here is me just literally knocking everything around. We'll come back to these. What are these? So we get these two little card decks, Chapter Approved and Dominatus. Now, having come back into 40k, I actually haven't really picked up any of these card decks, so this is kind of new to me in the sense of I'm actually not too sure what to expect. So just do that. So some nice little cardboard tokens there. So basically it's pretty much a whole heap of cards for various missions, etc. So basically if you want to plan your games accordingly, there's different deployment cards, mission objectives and stuff like that. So basically it is pretty much your pile of, here's actually how you do your missions. In fact, there's a little booklet here. Let's have a quick look through the booklet. Introduction, Chapter Approved. Battles give you and an opponent a way to play exciting, thematic and balanced games of Warhammer 40,000. In these battles you will clash to earn victory points by accomplishing a variety of goals. Whichever player gains the most VP wins the battle. So the contents is, so there's 6 cards for the deployment deck, 2 sets of 5 cards for force disposition, 30 cards for primary mission deck, secondary mission deck, 18 attacker, 18 defenders, and 6 twist cards and some operation markers. And then I'm not going to go through the rest of that, but that is very cool. So basically, unlike the good old days where you just put your armor down and then go full ham, you can actually play with an actual mission and objective in mind. So that's the whole Chapter Approved deck there, which is nice to have. I'm just putting it back together off screen. As for the Dominatus deck, so we do have a little booklet here. Following rules and deck will enable you and other players to fight for the fate of Armageddon. Get ready to fight over unique locations and new missions, earning glory for your alliance and upgrades for your characters, all in this new format. So it can obviously be used for the Chapter Approved. Obviously, you know, these are different strategy cards, skills, battle honors. So basically, ways to, you know, continue to provide some level of additive gameplay to your games. So that's very cool. And there's a whole heap in there, so chances are you're not going to get bored anytime soon. Now I do know some of these card decks have been sold separately in previous editions. I don't know how viable they are. Once again, as I mentioned, I've not really bought any of these decks individually before in the past, so this is my first encounter and exposure to, you know, these types of card decks within 40k, especially since I've been back. These things didn't really exist when I first started back in 2nd and 3rd edition. We're War Gear cards, but that's different. We do have this nice little packet for the data cards. Now, obviously, I'm not too worried about showing these off because they've actually been available on Games Workshop for some time. I do recall having actually looked through the Marine ones before 11th edition actually came out. So we do get these in nice, proper formatted cards. So there'll obviously be the ones for the Marines and then the ones for the Orks. In fact, this is probably as close as I'll get to owning an Ork codex. So obviously we'll have the data cards for each and every unit. Space Marines will have that on the back, and the Orks will have that on the back as well. So definitely not too bad. It is nice that we actually get the data cards as actual physical cards here, as opposed to having to print them off. Now, I'm sure when each of the relevant codices, codexes, however you should pronounce it, are released, I am sure we will get new data cards. Probably not at this scale. These ones feel a bit... Actually, no, I take that back. I was going to say they feel a bit bigger than normal, but no, they are probably the right size. Some Ork art and the Marines. So there's that. Okay, so I think that's pretty much the boring side of things. So getting into the unboring side. The Armageddon Assembly Guide. Actually, it feels like a full-on booklet. And obviously some promotional stuff about the Battle of Armageddon and some of the things that you can do to participate and decide what is going to happen. So that's very cool. So the assembly guide, I mean, every model tends to come with some type of assembly guide. Given that this is a full-on box set, this is unsurprising. So I'm not going to spend too much time over here, but obviously the usual rules of building, nothing has really changed. Variations of kits, and obviously the different base sizes, to which a few are included. The contents, so all the relevant sprues between Space Marines and Orks, the various bases, and then pretty much starting with the Marines and the Captain. Now everything is, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your point of view, it is all going to be snap fit. Doesn't mean that you can't do some minor conversions here and there, subject to where your connections are. You just might have to detach the peg or something else. So in terms of this, I'm probably going to build them pretty much straight as is. There is the Getting Started with Space Marine box set coming out in the future. I surprisingly will probably grab one. I won't grab the Ork one, but in terms of the Marine ones, I might grab one. Just have to do something different with them. So here we go with the intercessors. So in terms of snap fit, everything is pretty stock standard. There's nothing really unusual. It's not the first time Games Workshop has done snap fit models. Probably will not be the last. It is an introductory box set, so it's always nice to see all that there. The Vanguard of Veterans. I do know there was a little bit of contention there because they don't look too veterinary. Yeah, I'm not going to try that again. Eradicator Squad with the Heavy Bolters. And then the Land Speeder. It'll be interesting to see how well the Land Speeder builds. I will remember, 3rd edition Land Speeder, as interesting as it was a quote-unquote nightmare to put together. And there you go. That is pretty much the completed Marines, painted in the Blood Angels colours. As for the Orks, just going through all the build there. So starting with the War Boss, you've got the Banner Knob, the Big Boss, Pain Boy, Weird Boy. Everything's actually quite nicely laid out, which is nice to see. Going through the boys, so there will definitely be some options and variations here. So you've got 2 different options there for the boss knob. Interchangeable parts for the heads, which is nice. So going through and building the boys. Obviously, once again, you've got some options there for different poses and things. I suspect it's probably the same armaments, just different hands, different poses and things like that. So I don't think you're missing out if you go a particular line of build. At least that's from what I can see from my very quick glancing of the manual. The Gretchen, which don't look like they'll be too difficult, 2 pieces each. Then again, I remember there was a day Gretchen was just a single piece. You've got the War Track here, which is cool, and then the big Mech Dakarig, which is probably going to be one of the most involved builds of the actual entire set. I feel will probably be one of those models that you'll do sub-assembly for as well. And there's the completed Orks, all painted there. We've got the Dakarig up here in the corner as well. So that is the nice assembly guide for all the models in Armageddon. Literally a nice booklet. Okay, so just putting that aside, we do get a very nice Armageddon transfer sheet. So we'll have a few of the Ork clans, Evil Sons, Goths and Bad Moons, and then we'll have some of the Space Marine chapters, Ultramarines, unsurprising, Blood Angels, Salamanders, Crimson Fists, and White Scars. Very nice. Will I use any of them? No. No offense, of course. So we obviously have those. Before we get into the fun and magical part, so we obviously have this wonderful bag of bases. Now, because everything is snap fit, everything is going to have that little snap fit connector point within the base. Likewise, we've got these 3 larger bases as well. So those 2, and this one, so I think this will be for the Dakarig. That'll probably be the War Track and Land Speeder, I'd imagine. So we have that. So everything should be there. Now, the fun part, going through all these sprues. This is going to be a partial nightmare. I think I'm going to try and... Yes, there's sprues obviously here. Okay, so I have no idea which sprue I picked. I think it is the Weird Boy. So there's the Weird Boy sprue. Everything is all there by the looks of things, so not too bad in the number of pieces there. As always, there is a tactical rock for the actual model to be there. Detailing's not too bad. It's very nice to see. So we obviously have that for the Weird Boy. Next set, so it looks like we have the Space Marine Captain here on the left, and I suspect on this side will probably be the War Boss. I'll admit right off the bat, even though I just went through the assembly guide, Orks are not my thing, so if I completely don't recognize who it is, this is me apologizing in advance. So those are the 2 models for those. Very, very cool. Looking at the way that the captain is done, I think you will obviously have some options to do some conversions later down the track, and it's also very nice to see that there are some different head options. Very cool. So even though it's snap fit, there will be options. Next sprue is definitely some Orks. That is literally the extent of my knowledge. Okay, I think this is the banner knob, I guess. As I said, Orks are not my thing, so I cannot tell specifically without pulling out the assembly instruction who is who. I think that's the actual little assistant for the Panboy. I should really stop while I'm ahead, but that's obviously for the Orks. We have this very interesting sprue here, which I feel might be the War Track. Definitely not too bad for snap fit. I mean, it actually looks good for snap fit. Very nice there. So we have that. We have another one of these weird length ones for the Marines. So obviously I know there's the Ancient here. That looks like it's, I think that might be part of Land Speeder. Not too sure who we're supposed to be seeing here. I think these will be parts of the Eradicators based on the heavy bolter there. So yes, interesting how some of the parts are, yeah, let's try that again. How some of the parts aren't all like collectively together. Actually, looking at that, that looks like the helm for the Chaplain. Okay, this actually could be the Chaplain, not the Land Speeder, because that kind of looks like a foot. So there you go. So definitely more of the Space Marine. So I think it is the Chaplain and the 3 Eradicators, I guess. And there might be a Vanguard veteran there as well. Oh, and the Ancient as well. Now, going into some more whole-sized sprues. So we're back to the Orks, so I suspect these are probably the boys. Definitely a good array of plastic to get through, so that's not too bad. So we have that. Another sprue here, which I suspect is probably the Datasheet. So given that they're snap fit, there will be one side that looks pretty plain. It's going to be the inside, and then you've got the outer side as well. But that does look really cool. Is this going to sway me to like build like a full-on orc army? No, but as I said, I will have plans, which I will share later. Although, I just looked at this particular orc here, because I'm pretty sure that's his lower jaw. I will admit it's very interesting how things are sectioned up these days. But yes, I did have a plan, and now that I've seen that, I don't know how well my plan will come to fruition. Anyway, more orcs. I think I also saw some of the Gretchen pieces in there as well. The land speeder. This will definitely be interesting to put together. It looks a lot better than the original land speeder, which is basically like a large bottom piece and a large big piece with a center piece. If I remember correctly, fitting the top piece was a bit of a pain, but this one looks like it might be a bit easier. It is all snap fit, unlike the original one. So yeah, having a, I think that'll work out a lot better. But looking forward to putting that together. But that does look cool. So that's the land speeder. What else do we have? So back to the Marines again. So I think these are definitely going to be Vanguard vets based on the jump packs. This is probably the Librarian, especially if that's the staff, and I think that's the main body. And then over here, could still be the Vanguard vets. It's hard to say because I'm just looking at literally weird cut-up forms of the body. Now, having started back in 2nd and 3rd edition, like this is like a really weird style that Games Workshop now do the actual models in, because I'm of the old school days where head was a head, torso was a torso, legs were legs, arms were arms. You didn't have, here's a good example, where the torso was already pre-joined with some legs and things like that. Anyway, back to the Marines, and I suspect this is actually the Intercessor sprue. It'll be interesting to see how much flexibility there is here. Like I can see a number of individual heads, but are we only given the 10 heads, or do we have a few more? Time will tell. Otherwise, I'm sure if you have a lot of Space Marine heads in your own backlog, you could probably use some of those. So that was the end of the sprues. So, what am I going to do? Just going to, guess I will make a bit of a mess, really. Okay, so I guess that'll pretty much bring us to the end of the unboxing of the 11th edition Armageddon box set. Definitely a nice array of inclusions, obviously the core rules, this Operation Imperator narrative book, assembly guide, well obviously all the sprues, the data cards, etc. So be fun times ahead to put everything together. I'm sure it'll take a lot of time to do so, but it is half the game. But yeah, I'm definitely excited that I finally cracked this open. It's been on my to-do list for a while, and I will admit I'll probably be starting with the Marines first before heading back to the Orks. Now, because I've said it a few times, Marines and Orks, so from the Marines perspective, I'm not going to do too many conversions. I'll probably just do straight build as they are. The intent will be to paint them as Blood Ravens, because I've always wanted to have like a small little Blood Ravens army. This is irrespective of Dawn of War 4 coming out. So that'll be fun. I did mention if I do get another box of the Space Marines, not Armageddon, I'll probably take those and actually do some conversions and things like that. So I'll probably try to reintegrate it back into my main Dark Angels. As for the Orks, now there's a bit of up in the air speculation because I just noticed how some of the heads are done. I was going to do them as blue skin boys because of this whole weirdness of seeing Marneus Calgar's head plastered on everything. So basically, the idea was somehow acquire a plethora of Calgar heads, attach them to all the orcs, and basically have like a Calgar orc army. Now, as I just said, one of the models, the bottom of the jaw was already integrated into the model. It's not a complete setback, but obviously my intent of just doing a blatant head swap will not be as quick as that. So time will tell. A friend of mine at work gave me the inspiration of, well, why don't I paint them like orcs from World of Warcraft? I don't see how you can, but that's besides the point. So yeah, what I'm going to do with the orcs now, up in the air, but I'll figure something out, because I would like to have some orcs just for something different to paint. So obviously they're a completely different style from the Marines. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave the unboxing there. It's been a bit of a journey, especially for something this size, but at least I can say it's done. Thank you very much for sticking around this very interesting unboxing of the Armageddon box set for Warhammer 40k. It's part of the rollout of the 11th edition. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. It does support the channel. I do appreciate it. Obviously, now that I've done this, I'll try and do smaller bits of content, probably just down to shorts, just to see how things are going. With that being said, there will be content on my Instagram as well as the YouTube community tab. Typically, it's work in progress stuff that I'm working on, but obviously, with the Armageddon stuff here, there actually might be a bit of a surge in that 40k content. With that being said, stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video, whether it's more 40k or something else on the channel. See ya.